Hey, it's the Midnight Raven, and today we're looking at part 2 in the case of the Melbourne killer known as Mr. Cruel. If you haven't seen part 1, I implore you to see part 1 because there are more details of these crimes in part 1. If you haven't already, do give it a big thumbs up and like, subscribe, and let's get into the case. So, a brief recap from part 1 was Mr. Cruel had multiple young girls. He had attacked them, assaulted them, abducted them, and dumped them. Up until this point, all of his victims had been kept alive. So, he had new targets in view, and so the case continues. So, his next target were the Chan sisters. These three sisters were home alone one night when they were confronted by an intruder waving a long carving knife. This was around 9 p.m. in the evening. Two of the younger sisters were dragged into a bedroom and locked in a wardrobe, with the youngest of the sister being kept in the front room. The two elder sisters were dragged into a bedroom and locked into a wardrobe where a bed was placed in front. It took around 15 minutes for the two sisters to manage to push the bed out of the way and get out of the wardrobe, and on running downstairs would find their other sister had disappeared along with the intruder. It would take over a year before the 13-year-old's body would be found dead. When police arrived at the Chen sisters' house to find one of the sisters had been abducted, the police also found a message painted on the bonnet and the windscreen of the parents' car, stating the message "Payback Asian drug dealers," and painted on the driver's side was the words "More to come." Was this a targeted hit from drug dealers? Had the parents been involved in some dodgy dealings? The plot does thicken. So, police were sure that the attacks that were done by Mr. Cruel were targeted attacks, but there was no evidence to suggest Mr. Chang was involved in any lucrative or criminal affairs, meaning that maybe this was just an isolated incident. The police decided that the painted messages were to throw the police off, making it so Mr. Cruel could continue with his crimes while the police were going in a different direction. The Chan sister murders increased pressure on the police to find Mr. Cruel, as up until now the girls had remained alive, but obviously the Chan sister had been killed. So the police decided they needed a special task force to go through the evidence, and this started in 1991. Police believed that three more attacks that occurred in 1985 and 1987 were also part of Mr. Cruel's plan of attacks. Based on victim statements, police believed that the man was aged between 30 and 45 years old, had a slight build, and had a clean-shaven face, although with a balaclava it wasn't exactly clear. He also had a soft-spoken voice and had possible sandy or ginger hair. Although he was wearing a balaclava, apparently hair could be seen underneath, but only very slightly, hence the colour not being completely known. A reward for £300,000 had been posted for any information leading to the arrest of Mr. Cruel. The task force had gone around and searched over 30,000 homes and had interviewed over 27,000 suspects in total. The investigation lasted 29 months, and with a cost of over £4 million, they were nowhere closer to finding the identity of Mr. Cruel, although his crimes would continue. So, on the 15th anniversary of the last crime of Mr. Cruel, police would renew their efforts to solve this case. The police released information from Sharon's case, revealing that Mr. Cruel had a camera set up, as during her abduction, she remembers seeing a camera as the blindfold on her face came down slightly and a camera on a tripod was seen. This made the police believe that Mr. Cruel had an interest in filming young kids for whatever purposes he had. In 2010, another task force was begun called Apollo, and police said that Mr. Cruel had either flown the country or had possibly died due to the 15-year gap in the attacks. No attacks had happened in the last 15 years that the police could identify as being the works of Mr. Cruel. So, on the 25th anniversary of the crimes, police released more information, a dossier dubbed the Sierra Files, to the local newspapers. This dossier contained information relating to the cases which police would hope spark people's interests and maybe come up with some new leads or possibly find the identity to the answer of who Mr. Cruel was. Despite having 7 possible suspects in total and apparently losing crucial evidence to the case, including the tape that was used to blindfold one of the victims, which could have helped solve the case by using DNA testing that was now available at that time, the masked man's identity had still remained a mystery. Even with all this information being released to the public, no one had come forward with any information leading to an arrest. So, the case and the hunt for Mr. Cruel would continue. Another reward was put up, this time for $1 million. Still stands as a possible reward for anyone giving information leading to an arrest. But the £1 million reward still stands, and no one has got the information to claim this reward. All of the incidents that occurred to these young children happened during the school holidays. So police believe that the incidents happened during the school holidays may have been because the masked man was involved in either school or schoolwork and was detained the rest of the year. The cases for these crimes still remain open and Mr. Cruel has never been found. After 25 years of no more crimes, had Mr. Cruel died? Had he just stopped his crimes? Had he killed that one last person and decided that he didn't want to keep going on? Because up until then, he hadn't killed anyone. And maybe the last crime where he killed the girl was too much for him, as up until then, he had only assaulted them and let them go. And maybe, just maybe, Mr. Cruel had some remorse for the killing that he did on that one girl. Is it possible he stopped because of that and decided that he didn't want to kill? It's possible, but obviously with more information we could find out the identity of Mr. Cruel. So till this day, this crime and case still remains unsolved. The identity of the Melbourne killer known as Mr. Cruel and his identity and why he proceeded to kill the last girl or why he assaulted the young children or filmed them and his motives for disappearing or stopping still remains a mystery. So if you enjoyed this case, comment down below, what do you think? Do you believe Mr. Cruel felt guilty for the last killing? Do you believe up until that point he was just assaulting girls and the killing had gone too far and that he decided to stop? Could a guilty conscience really betroth a serial killer? Although up until that point he had let his victims go. So if you want to see more from me, this is True Crime with Raven. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope these are getting better for you. I'm trying my best. I do have a script that I read because I do research all of these cases because I have had a fascination with serial killers and cold crimes for years. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know your theories down below. This is True Crime with Raven and I will see you very soon for a case. Take care and thanks for watching. Bye guys.